Shall we start? Yasmād-jātam jagat-sarvam yasmin-yeva pralīyate yenedam dháryate chaiva tasmai jñānātmane namaha Ishvaro gururatmeti murti bheda vibhagine vyomavat vyapta dehaya Dakshinamurtaye namaha Taittiriya Upanishad Mayacharya prasadataha Vispashtartha ruchinam hi Vyakyeyam sampraniyate Om Sahana vavatu Sahanau bhunaktu Saha viryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi Annam Brahmeti Vyajanat Annadyeva kalvimani bhutani jayante Annena jatani jivanti Annam prayantyabhisamvishantiti Tadvijñāya punareva varunam pitaramupasasara Adihi bhagavo brahmeti Tagum hovacha Tapasa brahma vijigñāsasva Tapo brahmeti Satapo tapyata Satapastaptva. So after this Punareva Varunam Pitaram Upasasara, it will repeat in all the anuvakas. Again and again it will come. Anyway, this is Anuvaka 2. Last week we started Bhrguvalli, and Bruguvalli is a conversation between the father and the son. Bhrugu is the son, Varuna is the father. So Bhrugurvaiva Runihi Varunam Pitaram Upasasara, that's how it started. It's a conversation between, so it's a samvada. So the word samvada has a meaning. Vada is argument, right? There is Vitanta, there is Jalpa, there are different words. Samvada means, in Vada, there is an implicit assumption, both of them know, so they have to square it up. I need to somehow give an impression I know better than you, or you need to give me an impression you are better than me, something like that happens. In other words, the level is the same. In Samvada, there is a gravity. The general understanding of the word samvada is there is a learned person from whom a person anxious to learn listens. So that's the meaning of samvada. So there is a gravity flow now. So this is a samvada, not a vada between father and the son. This is a samvada between Bhrigu and Varuna. Of course, Bhrigu went to Varuna and said, Adihi Bhagavo Brahmeti. I want to understand this notion of Brahman. I really want to understand what is this notion of Brahman. In fact, most of the Upanishad, this is a question. It will come in many ways, but this is in Mundaka Upanishad it says, Kasmin Vijñāto Sarvamitam Vijñātam Bhavati. By knowing that, I will be known of everything. So it's asked in different ways. But our ancestors had this great desire for Paravidya, not Aparavidya. All the other things are infinite sciences. That science that we all learn and practice in our life are all Aparavidya. Whereas their desire was on Paravidya. That's why Bhrigu also comes and says, Adihi Bhagavo Brahmeti. Please tell me what is this Brahman. And as we may recall, the father actually gave two answers. First he said, annam pranam chakshus, shrotram mano vachamiti. So first he just threw all these words. He said, you want to know what is Brahman? It is nothing but annam, pranam, chakshuhu, shrotram, manaha and vak. So he just left it like that. So which was not really, giving us much sense. How do we make sense of it? So he went, perhaps he was a little compassionate to his son. He went one step more and then he said something else. Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yat prayanti abhisham vishanti. That's what he said. He said, yato va imani bhutani jayante. From that, all these nama rupas, the world of name, form and gunas sprout. Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti. Because of which all these which sprouted out of him really is, in fact, Srishti, Sthiti, Laya. All the three he is saying. Yato va imani bhutani jayante is Srishti. Yena jatani jivanti. That is, Sthiti. Yat prayanti abhisam vishanti. After it has decided, after this nama and rupa which sprouted, which sustained for some time, when it went back into something. So he gave a slightly, even then it is not Brahman. Right? If you remember in Brahmanandavalli, Brahmavita apnoti param tadesha tat esha abhiyukta. It has been described like this. Satyam jnanam anantam brahma. See, that is a direct definition of Brahman. See, there are two lakshanas. One is called Swarupa Lakshana, which talks it rather than talking about it. So, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma is a direct definition of Brahman. Because Brahmanandavalli is a Upanishad, it gave a straight definition and of course, it went about expanding it in great detail. Whereas this definition that he has given here, Yatova imani bhutani jayante, this is not direct. This is indirect. This is called Tatastha Lakshana. We talked about it at that time itself. So it can be a Swarupa Lakshana, which is Vachyartha is Lakshyartha. Both are there. In the Tatastha Lakshana, what happens is you say something and you have to infer the ultimate through that. It is only a sort of an intermediate. The familiar example which I repeatedly was giving is, you ask where is his house, you show the coconut tree. Oh, you see the coconut tree? That house. So you are not at all talking about the house, you are talking about the coconut tree now. So that is Tatastha. So here it is not talking about Brahman. It is talking about a certain attribute which can be in some ways attached to this concept called Brahman. That is all he has done. First he said a very indirect, because he said, annam pranam chakshus shrotram mano vachamiti. That is too, dispersed kind of a definition. Then of course he said, tad vijijñāsasva, tapasa brahma vijijñāsasva. Through tapas, you understand this notion of Brahman. So that last class I talked about this uniqueness of this Indian method of learning teaching. That's the charm of Indian method of learning teaching. That's why I was making this point in a little more detail, that our Indian method of learning teaching does not involve too much of asking questions. Easily you could have asked some 1 questions. No. It's all about only when we stop asking questions, manana becomes a reality. You have to sort of live with the question. The question will, I talked a little bit about it in the last class, what will happen to the question and so on. So I think that is a method that is that you see in most of the ancient Indian tradition. You see it in this Bruguvalli very nicely. He didn't answer. In fact, in Chandogya, when last chapter of Chandogya Upanishad, When Virochana and Indra went, Prajapati did the same thing. Again he asked, what is Brahman? I want to know what is Brahman. After 24 years, he took him to asked him to come one day, showed them in front of a lake. This is Brahman. So that's all. They have to infer. They have to process that information. Similar method here also. Anyway, before we further progress in this Bhrguvalli, there are two things which we need to sort out very clearly. Only then the next 5 anuvakas would really make little sense. Therefore, I will do that in a little bit of detail. First thing is, when Bhrigu asked what is Brahman, Varuna gave a Tatastha Lakshana, which is Ito va yamani bhutani jayante, yena bhuta jatani jivanti, yat prayanti abhisam vishanti. So the first thing, if somebody has told us a definition like that, first thing we will do is we will process that. Because that's what I will understand Brahman as. Because you told me, I have a certain reverence for you. I asked you a certain question. You gave me an answer. So if I am a serious learner, if I have Shraddha and faith in you, I would process that information very seriously. So the first thing that could have happened to Bhrigu is he would have tried to make sense of this. So that is the first thing. So we will try to, understand it a little bit. Second, there is a repeated reference to tapas. So I think we need to also settle this notion of tapas, because the moment you say tapas, something will come to our mind. So we'll have to get that out of our way now. Only then we can make a good sense of what is happening here. So we will, first of all, we do that. First of all, what is this definition which Varuna gave? The definition that Varuna gave is something which is like this. Suppose I have let's talk about a golden necklace. It's a nice necklace, okay? And I ordered it because I liked a certain design. I went to the jewelry shop or to the goldsmith, and I told him, maybe I hand drew all the designs and all that. I gave it to him. Said, can you please get me this necklace? He takes a couple of weeks, whatever. He exactly creates your design and gives it to you. So this necklace has come out of gold. Of course, the same creation process which we discussed in chapter 2, we can discuss here also. The goldsmith is the nimitta karana. He is the architect. He has the know-how, he has the skill, he has the instruments. So he is the nimitta karana, he is the architect. Gold is the upadana, material cause. The other is the efficient cause, this is a material cause. So a gold necklace can come only out of gold, it cannot come out of plastic. A gold necklace has to find its birth only out of gold. We don't have to spend too much time discussing this. Yatova imani bhutani jayante can be understood to the nearest by taking an example of something from nowhere this necklace came. Because why? Because that design was unique. I drew the design, so I gave it to the goldsmith. Now the goldsmith put his whole thinking behind it. He brought of course the gold and copper, whatever needs to be fixed, all that he did. So out of gold has come that. So this birth of this new necklace has happened out of a nimitta karana, but more importantly it has happened out of a upadana karana, which is gold. Now I keep the necklace for 5 years, 6 years, until I decide that the fashion has changed. Now I want to change. So until then, the sustenance of the necklace happened only because of gold. If you had removed the gold out of the necklace, where is the sustenance? There is nothing like sustenance. In fact, the very process of removing the gold out of the necklace is the laya. Which is what I will do after 5 years. I will go and give back the same necklace. I will tell him, do this design now. Another design I will ask him to do. And in order to do the second design, he will first melt it. When you melt it, a necklace has to go back to its original form called gold. It cannot go anywhere. A necklace, no matter, or a ring, in fact what you may do is, I may give a old ring, one necklace, and some old stud, which the ring, the screw is gone, that's why I am not able to use it. He will melt all of them and convert it into gold. So, yat prayanti abhisam vishanti. That is what he is saying. Yatova imani bhutani jayante. This necklace came out of gold. Yena jatani jivanti. This necklace remained as necklace for 7 years because the gold was intact. It may last this luster a little bit. You rub it, it will come. Polish it, the luster will come again. It remained because of the gold only. The gold sustained. So Srishti is because of gold, Sthiti is because of gold, and moment you decided to do a laya, when you want to destroy it, the only way you can destroy is you have to return it to its old form, to its inherent natural form. And that natural form is actually gold again. So that is what he is saying here. So the way he has understood is, oh, this is the definition of Brahman now. And you can use any number of examples. A mighty ocean, out of the mighty ocean, there came something called wave. Wave is a nama and rupa that we have created temporarily. Because it sort of it came like this, with a gushing like this, got a little bit of a height, it went up to it. So that is called wave. And after some time the wave receded. So in this example, the Srishti, Sthiti and Laya happens in a few minutes. Maybe a minute and a half. So we can understand this example even better. We don't have to wait 5-6 years to melt the gold. So Itova Yamani Bhutani Jayante applies here. The Nama and Rupa called wave owes its existence only to water. Without water, where is this wave? It owes its existence to water. It remains as wave because there is this water in a particular form is called wave. If I remove the water out of it, there was no wave there. And when it resided, it went back to a form called water. So this is what Varuna has told to Bhrigu. So Bhrigu has understood this. So this is what we also call as Karya Karana Vivechana. There is a Karana and there is a Karya. The gold is the Karana. Karya is an instance of a cause called effect. So it's cause and effect. So what is Varuna saying? The world is an instance of a cause called Brahman, and that instance takes its own name and shape, because nobody said all gold should become only a necklace. Gold can become a bracelet, gold can become a stud, gold can become a ring or a chain or whatever. So the clay can get into millions of forms of clay. It doesn't have to become only a teacup or a flower pot or a water pot, not necessarily. So the way perhaps Bhrigu has understood as Brahman is the Karana, and the Jagat with all its various forms are Karya. It is a certain manifestation of these. Now actually we can use science. We can use science to actually understand it. See, let's look at this tripod, for example. There is this tripod. A layman. So this question of then this Karana and Karya is very, it can be relative or absolute. That's the next thing we have to understand. Just take an example. If you take this tripod, for a simple, person who doesn't know anything, he doesn't understand anything about it. A person who knows a little bit of it, he will say, oh, this tripod is made of metal. He will go that far. Because, he hits it, there is a metallic sound coming. So a person who is a little more informed, for him the Karya Karana or the Karana goes up to metal. If he is a material science person, he will not say it is metal. He'll say, oh, this is made of steel, alloy steel. Something like that he will say. He is fine-tuning this notion of karana. Now if you go a little further and then go to somebody who specializes even more in material science, he will not look at it as alloy steel. He will look at it as a certain chemical combination. Because for him, the karana is a certain combination of nickel and whatever, you have this steel and carbon and iron and all that. He will start, for him that will be the karana for, he will go that far. A person who is even deeper will actually look at it, who may be a person with a lot of chemistry, he will see it in terms of certain molecular structure. He might say this is so many atoms of carbon and so many atoms and all that, something will go into his mind. So he broad bases the notion of karana. A particle physicist will go even further and he'll get up to a subatomic level, and then he'll say this and this are same. He'll go to that level. A particle physicist is the one who can go near Advaita. It's only a particle physicist who has approached very close to Advaita, because he goes to the quarks and mesons, and when he goes to that subatomic Paramanu level, he is seeing this, in fact we and this inanimate, animate are all at one level, mapping at the same level for him. So the point is, although I said Karya and Karana, point I am trying to make is Karana itself can be a very relative term. It need not be an absolute term. It depends on the level of maturity I have. See, it's a matter of maturity. Maturity in the sense, awareness that I have, ability to which I can connect, and all these come into picture. As much as science for a layman and science for a particle physicist are different. We saw in this example. So in the same way, this whole idea of Karana can be at different levels. Since Bhrigu started by asking his father what is Brahman, perhaps his journey also starts at the first level of Karya Karana. Because that's what the rest of the anuvakas will make sense to us. That's why I want to put this into a certain amount of detail. We'll see that as we go along. The second part is tapas. Throughout these 6 anuvakas, satapo tapyata, tapasa brahma vijijñāsasva, tapo brahmeti. Immediately Bhrigu will satapo sa tapaha atapyata. Satapo tapyata, satapas taptva. Having done tapas. So now we have to get this notion of tapas very clear. Honestly, I must tell you, my first mental model of tapas is the tapas in movies I see. Because this visual media can, significantly affect our mental models. So tapas, immediately I see an ant hill. First they see somebody sitting. After some time the beard gets longer. Then an ant hill builds around him. And then one day it breaks and Lord Vishnu comes. These are all these nice, dramatized ways of, tapas has a few large reference in our Puranas and everywhere. Phenomenal reference. So I digged in little bit into several Puranas. I could, since I have indexable Puranas, I was able to search. Not that I started reading it afterwards and I don't have time. But I found quite a few references of tapas, because I would like to talk about tapas in some detail. Because let's understand why he is saying tapasa brahma vijijñāsasa. In fact, this word itself is, he says tapas is Brahman. Again, that's a very confusing kind of a word. Now I was reading Chinmayananda, he beautifully brought a very nice example. He said, I am baking bread. He said, how can you bake bread? As once it is bread, how can you bake? But this is how we use the word, no? I am baking bread. You can't bake a bread. Only after you have baked, the bread comes. Think about, we use word like that. You use that. I am building a house. Once you can't build a house. You can build something which will eventually become a house. But what do we say? We say we build a house. I am building a house. I am baking bread. So this tapo brahmeti is exactly that. Tapas is Brahman means don't take a literal meaning. Then if you take a literal meaning for this word, I am baking bread, then there is something wrong. Bread cannot be baked. After you have baked, something becomes bread. So in the same way, I like that point. I was reading his Taittiriya Upanishad commentary. He made this subtle remark. He said, understand tapo brahmeti like that. Tapas is Brahman means the process of tapas will eventually take you to Brahman. That is the larger meaning. And don't find fault with this kind of a statement. You know, when this dredging of Park Strait, I'm sorry, this, the Ram Setu, this thing. So at that time, you know, this great Tamil Nadu politician called Karnanidhi, he said, who said Rama built the bridge? Is Rama a civil engineer? Because he was the biggest, I think he had no sense when he asked this question. He asked, is Rama a civil engineer? Now, actually, if I had an opportunity, I would have asked him. Say, I say I build a house. We all say, no, I built, you invite me for the Graha Pravesha, then I ask you, when did you build the house? You know, he said it took 5 years for me to build the house. You are not a civil engineer, you did not, you know, with all your topa and all that, with brick in your hand, cement mixture, you never did it. See, in common parlance, there is a certain way of using. So when you say, I built the house, that means I am the adhikari. I enabled it. I provided the fund, I provided the mandate, I provided whatever is required, and got somebody build it on my behalf. They are all involved in this word when I say I built the house. Now I built the house 5 years back. Don't look at me and then ask, are you a civil engineer? So he asked a question like that. Is Rama a civil engineer? They are all very idiotic questions. So why I am saying this, lots of usages are like that. But people have nitpicked Veda literature like this. Moment you say Tapo Brahmeti, some intellectual wizard from the West comes and says, how can Tapas become Brahman? You know, it's Maya Jal, it's all that kind of questions come. That's not the meaning of it. It's like baking a bread or building a house or... So anyway, that's one side point. Tapo Brahmeti, Satapo Tapyata, Satapas Taptva repeats again and again and again. So there is a process by which the Brahman is understood. And that tool to understanding Brahman is called Tapas. This is what Bruguvalli is informing us. So therefore we need to now understand what is meant by Tapas. So I will go through some Puranic references. They are all converging on the same set of ideas. So beyond a point I stopped searching because they were all saying the same thing. So let's look at some of the references in Garuda Purana. In the Achara Kanda, it says, Manasascha, it's all in Sandhi, I am just splitting. Manasascha, Indriyanam cha, Ekagryam Paramam Tapaha. The Indriyas and the Manas, if you can fix it to a single reference, Ekagryam, can you fix it to a single reference? That is called Tapas. Now if you ask, do we do Tapas? Actually we do Tapas. When you are very seriously engaged in a work, for a brief moment, although we are engaged, this experience I am talking about maybe for a few, you forget everything. You are single-pointed. You know this traditional story in which Drona asked all of them, what do you see? And Arjuna said, I could see only the eye of the bird. That is a figurative way of explaining this idea. When your energy is focused on a single pointed thing, that is called tapas. And the single pointed focus, the two biggest villains are manas and indriyas. That's what we are able to infer from this sloka. That's why they are brought here. Manascha, indriyanam cha, ekagryam paramam tapaha. All are repeating the same thing in a different way. You just see, look at Mahabharata, in several places it is coming. Particularly it is coming frequently in Shanti Parva, in the later part. See, after the war was over, after, Yudhishthira is supposed to be, the king of Hastinapura, so he was crestfallen. He was really crestfallen. So again Krishna, the whole Mahabharata if you read, you find what this character called Krishna has actually done. Again Krishna comes in and says, you go to Bhishma. He is still alive. You go to him. Shanti Parva is very big. Shanti Parva has three major components. Actually, one is called, Raji Dharma. one major chunk. Another is called Apad Dharma. Another is called Moksha Dharma. Beautiful. Very huge. There's the biggest in Mahabharata. Very big. Very big. So, in that there is enormous conversation. In fact, that's the best part to read in Mahabharata. Front are all stories. People who are interested in, developing, understanding the world. Because quite often we are told, what is, Vyasa himself has said, what is in Mahabharata, what is not in Mahabharata, you will not see anywhere. That's why they say, Vyaso chishtam jagat sarvam. Vyasasya uchishtam eva jagat sarvam. Whatever he is left behind is the world. These kinds of references are there. Why? Read the Moksha Dharma. Read this Raji Dharma, Apad Dharma and Moksha, which is Shanti Parva. And then the last three Parvas are so rich in these discussions, which will make us worldly very wise. Serials will not show it, because it becomes, there are no action, no? Serials you can show only when there is action. When somebody is killed, somebody is all that nice things. So after Yudhishthira's coronation, Mahabharata is over, as far as serials are concerned. But if you really ask me, the best part of Mahabharata is after that. And at the front also. In the formative years of this Kuru dynasty, there are some nice ideas. So the references are all from there only. Anyway, so look at here. Karmana manasa vacha chakshusha chaiva te nripa. Hey king. This is the answer he gives. I don't know who gives this answer. This is again, I think, no, this is again a conversation only between Bhishma and Karmana manasa vacha chakshusha chaiva te nripa sanyimyendriya gramam astitaha paramam tapaha. So what does he say? Karmana, by the action that we do. Manasa, by the mind, which actually propels the action. Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayoho. That is what, in Amrita Bindu Upanishad it is there. In Manusmriti also the same shloka is there. Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayoho. So the mind is the one which directs many things. So karmana, manasa, vacha, chakshusha. See, vacha and chakshusha are indicative of karmendriya and jnanendriya. Because chakshus is the indication for jnanendriya. And speaking is it's just an indicator there. What he is saying, your karmendriyas, your jnanendriyas, your manas and your actions, right? All of them samyak niyamya, sanniyamya, samyak niyamya. Keep it well under your disposal, control or disposal, whatever. What? Indriya gramam. Gramam means cluster. Grama is called grama because there are a cluster of houses. That's why it's called grama. So Indriya grama. There are these 10 indriyas, no? Plus the super indriya called manas. If you put all of them, it's called Indriya grama. It is a cluster of sensory faculty that we have. Samyak niyamya indriya gramam astitaha. Those people who are able to succeed in that, paramam tapaha. So that is the definition you see in the second shloka. Third, ahara prabhavaha pranaha manodurnigraham chalam manasascha indriyanam cha api ekagryam nischitam tapaha. So again the same idea is coming here also. It says what you eat. So it's only adding a few more. What do you eat? Ahara prabhavaha pranaha, your ability to regulate your breath, and regulating breath doesn't mean pranayama. When you get angry, your breath is too much. When you are manaha samadhiyatam, at that level, if you are there, the breath is regulated. That is the meaning of that. Regulated breath means you are not a tensed person. You are on the ground. That is the meaning. Pranaha, manaha, durnigraham. Manaha, durnigraham, chalam. This is actually all these are very difficult to catch. Same Bhagavad Gita also we see the same thing. Arjuna said the same thing. Durnigraham, chalam. Manasascha indriyanam cha api ekagryam nischitam tapah. So this is indeed called tapas. Again the same idea. The third thing also again in Shanti Parva 250th Sarga. Manasaschendriyanam cha hi ekagryam paramam tapaha tadjyayaha. That is the ultimate jyayaha. chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, in the 5th shloka or 6th shloka, karmo jayo hi akarmakaha. There is one shloka like that. Jaya means superior. So he says, tat jaya, that is better, that is the superior. Sarva dharmebhya, of all dharmas, our ability to keep our, see, this is our biggest problem in life. We are not able to keep our sensory faculty at our control. We lose control, shout at people. You don't have to shout at people. Your getting upset is an indication that you are not able to handle. Guna guneshu vartante iti matva dharayan is what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. You have to leave all that to the vikaras and you stand away from that. That we are not able to do. So that is our problem. So he defines tapas as a certain ability which we have gathered. And what does that ability do? That ability keeps all these faculties that God has given us, which can create such a ruckus to us, such a mess to us, under our disposal. That's all tapas is. At the end of the day, that is what tapas is, according to all these definitions. I went to one Shanti Parva and took a little bit of conversation, just to, show, because it's very frequently being talked, and so. Yudhishthira Uvacha, Yudhishthira asked to Bhishma, this is a conversation between Yudhishthira and, this is in, I think, Moksha Dharma or somewhere it comes. Yadidam tapaha iti ahuhu, kim tapaha samprakirtitam, upavasam ata anyattu, I'm just taking all of them. Upavasam ata anyattu, okay, Vedacharam ata no kim shastram tapaha mahaprajna tanme bruhi pitamaha. So he says, he is sprinkling a few words. He says, is tapa to do with upavasa? Yeah? Or is it to do with a certain achara as per Vedic things? Right? Or is it, going after the shastras? Is that tapa? Please tell me what it is, because, what is being celebrated, what is being described very well. Kim tapaha samprakirtitam tat me bruhi pitamaha. That's how you have to do the anvaya of that whole shloka. That which is called tapa, please tell me. Hey grandfather, please tell me what is that tapas. So like that Yudhishthira is only, asking these questions for, these are all vyavaharika questions, which he wants to clarify himself. Bhishma Uvacha, Paksha Masa Upavasadin Manyante Vai Tapodhanaha. So first he asked about food. So for which he gave an answer. Yeah, one, in a Paksha, or one, in a Masa there are certain types of Upavasa. There is a certain restriction. See these people saying that I am doing Ekadashi Vrata, or people say, Thursday I don't eat, and it's a wonderful thing. Because if you don't know, if you have no idea of whether you can control food, I don't know what have you achieved in life. And we are so afraid of even trying it out. That is the crux of the matter finally lies there. Why am I not I'm not doing Ekadashi Vrata, I'm not bringing any religious angle to it at this point in time. I am saying once in 15 days, can you get a control of yourself? And one of the simple control is, let's say on Ekadashi Vrata, people do Mauna Vrata also. Speaking is another control. You try sitting for 1 hour. Try sitting for 2 hours. Impossible. Because if you do Mauna Vrata, your thoughts will dramatically settle. So, this Vrata is meant, this Achara called Vrata, don't eat once in 15 days or once in a week or whatever, depending upon whatever one can take it. It's only our ability to get confidence, I can control things. For a vast majority, we are not able to. There are two versions in it. Version 1 is you do it on that day and then, with interest finish it the next day. That's all we'll start, which is fine. But we will reach a stage where we can be perfectly without food for a day. It will be very good. But more than anything, how do you know you have control? Don't keep talking. Please practice for you. Don't even tell others. You practice for yourself. That is the idea behind all that. So he says, Mase Paksheva Upavasadin Tapodanaha, those who value tapa, that's one. Veda Vratadini, Tapa apare Veda paragaha. Those who follow these Vedic rituals and rites, they think that whatever the acharas that are all vratas which are all ordained in the Vedas, that is called tapas for them. They are also saying like that. Veda parayanam cha anye cha ahuhu tattvam ata apare. So some others think doing a parayana of the Veda is also a form of tapas for them. Then he says, then there are two shlokas. So after saying all these, there are two shlokas. He says, Yata vihitam acharaha tapaha sarvam vratam gataha atma vidya vidanam yat tat tapaha parikirtitam. So at the end of it, what is tapas? It should be atma vidya vidanam. It should be able to elevate you to a much higher level of your own existence. That is the intended purpose of all these. Our ability, see, it is only human being. This is a very unique property given only to human beings. Human being is the only creature, even devas cannot, apparently. Human being is the only creature which can say that even when there is enough food, I will decide not to eat. Animal cannot do it. Animal, when is all driven by instinct, when it is hungry, it cannot do upavasa and all that. It will hunt, it will eat. When it is not hungry, it will not take it and put it in the fridge also. Both are possible only by human beings. Ability not to eat, ability to store food for tomorrow also. In other words, what are we saying? The freedom of choice is a unique capability given only to human beings. And now we want to say we don't want to exercise the freedom of choice. We are very fearful of exercising freedom of choice in a lot of things. Food is only one. Aparigraha. See, Gandhi's personal life is a book to read only because of these reasons. He was able to show that he has tapas. So tapas is our ability to fix, irrespective of what happens. It cannot even make the slightest disturbance in our mind. That is the ultimate. So this capability is available only to human beings, nobody else. And it is given for a certain purpose. See, God, when it created such a wonderful creation with such a complex science, which even medicine is not able to understand what is happening with every part of every creature, there is a purpose why this has been done. The ability to say, I can be without food. I can, even if I have a lot of riches, I will not partake. I will, with a full heart, I will be able to give it to others. These are all unique thinking patterns only human beings can have. Animals cannot have it, devas cannot have it, anya loke, nobody can have it. And they are all meant, because that is the only way we can elevate our capability. We have to elevate our capability, because unless we develop that escape velocity, mumukshutva is just talking. This rocket, if it has to go to outer space, it has to develop the escape velocity of 11 kilometers per second. Only then it will escape the atmosphere and go to the outer space. We are in the same journey. And we have to develop the escape velocity. That's what. So he is saying, Atma Vidya Vidanam Yat Tat Tapaha Parikirtitam. Then he says, Tyagaha Tapaha. Therefore, your ability to give up. When everything is there, you should be able to give up. That only human beings can do. Other creatures cannot do. They are all driven by instinct. They will react to the signs. They are all conditioned and wired. No freedom. No degrees of freedom. Zero. Human being has the only one which has degrees of freedom. So you can say when everything is there, I don't want it. Shrotriyasya chaka mahatasya. That's why that Ananda goes like that, 10 power 20. Because you have overpowered something. That's what it is. So tyagaha tapaha tata shantihi tapaha. From there you get shanti. That's also tapas. Indriya nigraha brahmacharyam tapaha. Proktam ahuhu evam dvijatayah. These twice born people say this is exactly what it is. Your ability to raise your capability is actually tapas, because that is Brahma Vidya Vidana. So it goes on. I just took a few shlokas just to have a continuous dialogue of what is happening. In Viveka Chudamani, look at this shloka. Shrutehe shatagunam. When you hear whatever you are able to capture, hearing is a very good faculty amongst others that we have. Hearing is a very good faculty. So, but Shankaracharya says, Shrutehe shatagunam vidyat. In Sandhi, because of Makara, it becomes Nakara. Vidyan mananam. Vidyat. Shrutehe shatagunam vidyat mananam. Mananam can be 100 times powerful than hearing. That's why this question I was talking about. Live with the question and then reflect inside. It can be 100 times more effective. The mananam will happen only then. So, Shrutehe shatagunam vidyat mananam. Mananatapi. Mananam is self-reflection and thinking. I mean, running over the idea and trying to find what it means and so on. Nididhyasana is, getting deeper into it. Getting a feeling of it by getting an experiential understanding of what we are saying. It is even deeper. So he says, Mananatapi nididhyasam lakshagunam. He simply says it is 1 lakh times. Roughly he puts on money. Essentially what he is saying is it is several fold. Lakshagunam anantam nirvikalpam. That is actually, so that is what tapas can help. The single pointed focus will happen only when we go from Shravanam to Mananam to Nididhyasanam. Only that route only will converge all these energies instead of reeling it out of the Indriyas and Manas and Vak and all that kind of a thing. So that's why Manana Shakti is called Maunam. You try for 3 hours sitting without talking and doing anything, you will, first of all, it will be difficult. If we had reasonably overcome this, you will find you will become more thoughtful. Manana Shakti is called Maunam. And Manana Shilaha are Muni. The word Muni comes because they are Manana Shilas. Their ability to run through, they are able to process the mental faculty internally. That's why they are called Munis. So what is tapas? Tapas is actually God-given, designed, God-given psychological refinery for us. But if you remember chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita, many times I mentioned this. In chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita, it says, Vitaraga Bayakrodaha Manmaya Mam Astitaha Bhagavaha Jnana Tapasa Puta Madbhavam Agataha. That is one shloka. 9th shloka or 10th shloka, I think, in chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita. At that time only I talked in great detail about tapas. And the example I gave at that time, because I read it in Swami Ranganathan's book, beautifully he has written. See what he took an example. He said, crude. Crude is crude. It's very crude. A person who knows petrochemistry is a big science. There is a master's, PhD level courses are available. Petrochemistry is one. This metallurgy is another. You can heat and get a whole lot of things. Temperature, time, transition time. Transition is a very nice thing. So crude, if you refine it, there are many, but I am taking one track, one particular trajectory. If you refine crude a little bit, you get diesel. Diesel's octane knocking and energy level is, let's say, X. I am told if you refine it even more, you get gasoline, which is petroleum, which is much more in terms of its enthalpy and all that. You refine it even further, finer, you get aviation turbine fuel. He gives that example. You refine it even more, you get rocket fuel. So the point he was making is a refining process will make what is coming out of refining process will be much more vital, much more, its virya will be very high. That's the message he is bringing from there. It has a very high virya. So tapas is actually a psychological refinery. It is not a physical refinery. Tapas is all about what you do with your mind. Do you let it go wherever it wants to go? Are you able to say, and these small experiments are not eating for a day, little bit of aparigraha. That's why, giving dana was a great part of the story. If your ability to give, aparigraha will come. That's why every ritual you are supposed to give. Dana was a very important part of ritual because only by giving aparigraha will come, not by reading aparigraha 1,000 times every day morning you do prayer. There are a lot of people who do parayana, but they are nowhere near spirituality or religion. That's not what it is. Vivekananda says, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa says, you cannot write water and keep on squeezing it, not even a drop of water will come. He says it will not come. You can't write rain and then keep on squeezing it, rain will not come. In the same way, we have to internally do that. So it's a psychological refinery for the body-mind-intellect complex. This BMI complex requires a refinery, which is not physical. Physical refinery is working anyway. That's part of our design. I am talking about psychological refinery. That is tapas. Okay? Because it enables us to cross the sensory level which only human beings can. This is a unique capability only for human beings. So can we cross the sensory level? Because he writes it so beautifully. These are all from his book only I brought. He says, don't try to compete with an animal in terms of sensory enjoyment. You will be proven wrong. He says, they are ultimate. If there is a meter with which you can measure, you will probably find. He says, you can't beat an animal when it comes to sensory pleasure. Because they are wired only for that. They are at the physical level. They don't have a sensory level. Although some animals show certain exhibits of that, they are all exceptions. We are talking about the rules. So he says, don't waste your time on physical pleasures and enjoyments, which is what most of us are sort of moving into. That means we are not even checking our faculty. We are not even, using our faculty very well. So he says, we can't compete with them on this. It is concentration of the mind and sense organs, which is why all these definitions are saying again and again. So if we do it, it is a mechanism to transcend beyond the ordinary knowledge, because lots of these distractions will fall by the wayside. What is the idea behind it? Those distractions must go out. Otherwise, it is all distractions for us. Our journey is all ridden with hundreds of distractions. How can you move forward without, if it is full of thorn, if you want to go to the other side, it's all kinds of thorn, we will have to remove them, na? You will have to invest on removing them first, then you find a way. So this is like that. So tapas is actually meant for it. And there are many ways, as Bhishma says, there are different ways by which you can understand the meaning of tapas. It is an internal focus rather than external focus. Nothing to do with the external focus. It's what is happening inside. How do you manage the world inside? That is tapas. That's why it is one's own activity. No outsourcing. You can't do tapas for me. Nor can I do tapas for you. Outsourcing is not possible. My spiritual development, my Vyaktitva is something which I have to endure. That's why people say, in spiritual journey, you are alone. Not your father, not your mother, not your spouse, not your well-wishers can come with you. Not your guru. Guru also cannot come with you. Guru can only show a hand. We are alone. It's our own effect, our own initiative, our own effort which will go. Of course, people can catalyze. Process can be catalyzed by some enabling mechanism. So tapas is meant for it. So it is an expression of free will. To me, tapas is nothing but an expression of free will. I will not have food on Ekadashi is a choice I have made. Nobody forced it on me, for example. Or somebody made the choice. Or somebody said, there is very different kinds of vrata. There is a Chandra vrata. Jains even very religiously follow now. I have no, this tapas ultimate nearest is Jains. The kind of tapas they do. In this Chandra vrata, in the Sukla Paksha, they increase the eating. And in Krishna Paksha, they reduce the eating. There are different types of vratas are available. These are all meant not to, make your muscle stronger, nothing. It's all mental faculty, not the physical faculty. It's mental faculty. The Ashtanga Yoga for me is actually a tapas meant for internal faculty, not for stretching the muscle with a mat and all that, yoga dresses and so on. The Bhagiranga asanas are only starter. It is Antaranga asana, Antaranga prayogas. Finally. So all of them are different methods for the same tapas. It's an expression for free will that human beings have, and free will is the most important requirement for spiritual growth. All others come later. If we are not willing to open the bag and take this toolkit called free will, we will never spiritually go anywhere. You can endlessly, sort of read and all that, but free will, I think, has to express itself. That's called tapas. Is to travel the path of purity. And so when he said tapasa brahma vijijñāsasva, so much goes behind it. It is a way by which you have a single pointed focus. And focus on what? Focus on what I want. That's why I say terrorists have a lot of tapas. No, otherwise it's not possible. You need a single pointed focus. Only then executional excellence will happen. The application is misdirected.
Ravana did a
Yeah. That's why, all these Purana stories, if you see, the first part is they are ultimate in tapas. They are, people jokingly read it, but it's so nice there. The tapas, that's why there is a difference between goodness and greatness. Rama and Ravana in Valmiki Ramayana, I have been saying this a few times in the past also. If you read Valmiki, Rama and Ravana are put on the equal pedestal when it comes to greatness. They were not on the equal pedestal when it came to goodness. Both of them had tapas, so they were great. But one destroyed out of tapas. One destroyed himself out of tapas. In Uttarakanda, if you see, Yuddhakanda and Uttarakanda, if you see, you will read all the mischief that Ravana has done. It's available only in Uttarakanda and Yuddhakanda. In Yuddhakanda it comes because he is on a slippery ground. That's when all these Valmiki, 60th Sarga onwards it starts. He starts recollecting, somebody gave me a curse, is it going to happen now? Like that the story is sort of brought in. So tapas is a single-pointed focus that's very important for goodness as well as greatness. It's definitely required for both. The goodness is the spiritual part. Concentrated and continuous effort touch. So all these we must remember when he says satap. It's a simple word, satapo tapyata. So therefore he did tapas, which means he took each panchakoshas and single-pointedly inquired into it without distraction, without any kind of a thing. He was all the time thinking about that particular, that is how the next 5 anuvakas are going to be. So we will see those fairly quickly. We'll be able to see because we have already discussed it in great detail in the second chapter. Annam brahmeti vyajanat annadyeva kalvimani bhutani jayante annena jatani jivanti annam prayantya visham vishanti. So what he did was, he did this tapas, means he took that idea of yatova imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yat prayantya visham vishanti. He took that idea and then he first applied it to Annamaya Kosha. He found that it was true. It had a complete parallel to that idea, because what is he saying? Annam Brahma, he said Annam Brahma iti vyajanat. He finally came to a conclusion. What father said I have now understood, because I picked his idea and that idea perfectly applies for Annam. So therefore he came to a conclusion, okay, Brahman is actually Annam. And he argued. Why? He says, Annadyeva kalu imani bhutani jayante. The birth that we take. So if you look at it at this level, the world exists only because of food. This is one, just like a chemistry person looks at the whole world only as molecules of carbon, and all that. This is one lens. The whole world is nothing but coming out of food. Sustaining, try to eat without food for a month, let us see what happens. That's why they do, these politicians do 8-hour, unavrata, fasting. But after that they eat. Even that they are not able to hold on for some time. There is another Upanishad in which it is very nicely there. Yeah, Uddalaka and Shwetaketu, it is there. First he says, stop eating food for 15 days. He says, my memory is blanked out. I am not able, he says, please recite some mantra. He says, no. My memory is blanked out. Nothing. Then he tells him, now you have food. So he had food. Then he said, if you don't have water, you will not even survive. So he gives 2 kinds of exercises. Chandogya, it is again in Chandogya. Uddalaka and Shwetaketu. That conversation is in Chandogya. So anyway, so annena jatani jivanti, we'll see it in a little more detail. It's already 7 o'clock. So essentially what he is saying is, he took this idea, yatova imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yat prayanti abhisam vishanti. He was able to see that works with this concept called annam. So he could go that far. Therefore he came to a conclusion that annam brahma iti vyajanat. He understood that annam is indeed Brahman. But then of course he had his own bit of disturbance, he was not fully convinced, so he came. Punareva varunam pitaram upasasara. He came again, and then his father asked. Father was not ready to give any answer. He said the same thing. Tapasa brahma vijijñāsasva tapo brahmeti satapo tapyata. So it repeats like that. So we will see it in the next few classes.
He will again give the same answer.
Yes. All the 5 anuvakas will give the same answer. That is what I meant by saying there is a way of teaching. Okay, we will continue next class.